Sanders. I'm superintendent at Richland Bean Blossom Schools, and it is a pleasure to be with you this evening. And yes, we are very excited to finally get school started on Monday. We are under a hybrid schedule, so we had half of our students starting to come to school on Monday. And the other half started Monday with e-learning, and we also have a population enrollment of about 400 students who are doing virtual school. And so they all started in one way or another on Monday. Today was e-learning for everybody, and then tomorrow the other half will be coming to school. It was so good. It just did my heart good to see students and staff back in the buildings. Jeff, just if you could, I don't know if this has been done yet, but if you could make Jamie Miller co-host so she could share our PowerPoint presentation.
And I will defer to Eric Evans to go ahead and do that.
Sharing capabilities are enabled.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Jamie's doing that. I'll just share with you that our team, we're always very excited when we have the opportunity to come before you, to share with you what our students are doing, what our teachers are doing in the way of STEAM. And to be very honest with you, every time we come before you, we walk away on cloud nine. We are energized and inspired by your great questions and your supportive words. You're so interested in our students, and that inspires us. So I just want to start off by thanking you for that. I also want to thank you for the years of financial support from the RDC for our STEAM initiative. I was actually looking at the original PowerPoint presentation made to the RDC asking for financial support of this new initiative that was called STEM. Of course, we added A for the arts and implemented STEAM in RBB schools. In looking at that original PowerPoint presentation, it had the words that said that we were going to set the stage for an educational platform to support student engagement. I think you can tell by the presentations that we make twice a year that RBB has done just that. We have definitely engaged our students in very innovative ways, but it's transformed into so much more. And so over the last year, we have been working on the next step, the next stage, so to speak, and we've called it Ready Schools. And Ready Schools initiative is not only going to continue engaging students, but once again, sets the stage to really change an entire culture in RBB schools in such a way that it's going to have an impact beyond the four walls of our schools. But it's going to have a tremendous impact in the economic development of our community by partnering with businesses in our community in very innovative ways. Our Ready Schools planning initiative last year started with what if questions, and so it goes back beyond that, really. When I remember when myself and one of our board members started talking with someone from the Regional Opportunity Initiative on how RBB could partner with local businesses. That led to a meeting at Cook Medical with some key stakeholders with Cook Medical, and that led to our year of planning for Ready Schools. And so really tonight, we come to you virtually to present to the Ready Schools, or present to the RDC, our Ready Schools plan in more detail. And we want to formally ask the RDC to renew your financial support of $1.6 million over a 6-year period. I think you'll see in a presentation tonight that our Ready Schools plan is very comprehensive, and I think you'll see that it will make a difference not only in the lives of students, but in our community for many years to come. It would be a great investment in our community. So to begin the presentation tonight, I would like to introduce our Ready Schools coaches, Mandy Henry, John Kerr, Jamie Miller, and Megan Scott. And at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mandy Henry.
All right. Hello, everybody. I know that we have worked together a lot over the last 5 years. Back in 2015, when we started partnering with you and really developing what this STEAM initiative would look like at RVB. In 2016, that meant we were able to add instructional coaches. In 2017, we started implementing that into the classrooms. And then we added STEM certified schools in our district. And then in 2019, we were really able to expand our curriculum offerings and STEM-based learning and those pathways for our students that align with industry needs in our community. And then this past year, we worked with Ready Schools, like Dr. Sanders was just saying, and now we're at the point where we are ready to implement the plan that was created with Ready Schools. And the 3 pillars of that plan are innovative teaching and learning, career awareness and readiness, and community engagement.
All right. My internet is struggling, so I hope, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I can.
Okay. I couldn't hear much of Mandy, so hopefully it'll hang in there for us. So my name is Jamie Miller. As the district readiness coordinator last year, I really just oversaw this design process, right, that we shared with you in the spring. So from discovery to refinement, we really tried to keep the mindset of using our STEAM initiative as this foundation that we had set, like Mandy alluded to, in order to springboard us into looking more intensively and more intentionally, probably with community members, at what are we doing that isn't just best practices? What are we doing that isn't just informed by research and national trends, but what's actually aligned with the needs of our employers in our local and our regional workforce? What are we actually preparing our students to enter here in South Central Indiana? So throughout this process, we really tried to keep that lens of almost zooming in on our community, still doing what we know is best based on research and based on the trends in STEM education and the growth of STEM fields, but doing it in a way that we're very intentionally preparing our students for the jobs that are awaiting them. So when we took a look at some of the post-graduation data of where our graduates are going after they leave us, what they're purporting to plan for, what they're entering, and then also what they're sticking with and what they're continuing to pursue with a given graduation year. Like, for example, the Commission for Higher Ed had the most recent cohort data was on 2018. So if 75% of our almost 200 graduates are enrolling in some type of higher education program, we found that of those students, of that approximately 150 students, 33% of them were not returning for a second year. So these students
really?
are amassing college debt for a program that they're not completing. So presumably they're not putting to use in our workforce. So they're not achieving their goals, but they're also not serving a valuable purpose in our workforce and, you know, contributing back in the way that they intended, at least, to our community. Not to say that they couldn't make a move in a different direction, but the data shows that that retention rate is just not there in second year enrollment. So we have to figure out, where are those students going, right? What are they deciding to do after that second year of college? And what could they have been doing prior to that decision? College can't just be the decision that they make because that's what everyone's supposed to do. But if we can put the experiences and the skills in place in high school or junior high or elementary so that they're making informed plans before graduation, we found that we're going to have a much higher success rate at preparing our students to be those valuable and engaged members of the workforce here that we can retain in our region. So just as an example, I'm going to kind of scoot over these pretty quickly, but this was an example with that same 2018 cohort of the programs that our graduates, our Edgewood graduates, were selecting. So if 32% of our graduates that go on to a 2 or 4 year program are choosing an arts and humanities program, and you can see the progression there down through the different fields, the trades and the business field and the STEM careers that are the growing fields are not proportionately represented. So this is an example of a state level similar comparison of the programs that students are electing to enter in higher education. And then when you see where the actual growth in the region is, these are our 3 key sectors. So where there's an 11% industry growth in these 3 key sectors, or excuse me, there's an 11% industry growth across various sectors in our region, in the region that ROI serves, this 15 county region called the Indiana Uplands. If that is only matched in these 3 key sectors, the growth rate is 4% for all other industries. So the chances of our students finding a career or even a job upon graduation in those humanities or those arts fields that aren't in the life sciences, defense, or advanced manufacturing is much lower. So trying to prepare our students, you'll see in some of these strategies, just means informing them of what jobs there are in our region and what they can serve here within the Indiana Uplands and what that looks like at a much earlier age, so that they know that life sciences doesn't just mean you're a scientist. It doesn't just mean you're working in a lab, but what those careers actually look like. These are the things that 4 years ago we never could have predicted that we needed to know and that our teachers and students needed to know. So this is just an example of how the evolution of this initiative has changed in ways that we could have never predicted and has become so much bigger, but in such great ways that it's really redefined our purpose with this Ready Schools plan. So as an example, through this process, it wasn't just educators, and I can't reiterate this point enough, that this wasn't just educators doing what they thought was best for our students. That, quite frankly, has been this foundation of STEM education, whereas now we were able to use that springboard that I mentioned, and with this board, this advisory, and particularly these industry representatives from some of the major employers here in our local community, we were able to constantly put our decisions and our ideas and our plans through this iterative cycle of designing, so that we weren't waiting until the end and rolling out what we thought was the best plan. We were constantly bouncing these ideas off this advisory team. And I'll be honest, the first meeting with them, I really thought it would be a sit and get. I'd be sharing about Ready Schools. I would be telling them, you know, what was ahead in the process, and maybe in the second meeting, they'd offer up some information. But Dr. Sanders can attest, that very first meeting, there were conversations being had. They had ideas, they had hopes, they had frustrations, they had things that they wanted us to hear. And this group was just so transformative for the process, because it was just that iterative nature. And there was constantly that back and forth of them vetting our ideas and really building out the context for us as educators to understand what this workforce looks like and what their needs are, quite literally as employers in new hires. So this board was a tremendous support as we were planning each of the pillars of this plan, like Mandy alluded to. So this is kind of a glimpse of the overall plan and how we just organized all of the strategies so that it wasn't just silos of independent strategies or independent programs, but everything really works cohesively in one system. So John Kerr is going to explain kind of the cornerstone of this plan with our graduate profile and what we want that to serve as an exemplar to work towards.
Yeah, so we took all the information we were getting from the EWAT team and other industry partners, and also what we were hearing from parents and all of that. We pulled that together to kind of create that graduate profile that would then stand on top of everything else we were trying to do to make sure that we were gearing the students forward into what comes next. So as we begin to look at that graduate profile, if Jamie can switch to the next slide for me. Thank you.
Stuck, sorry.
Oh,
there we go.
That's okay. There we go. You'll see 6 main characteristics that we heard and that we wanted as staff for them, or the graduates, to leave Edgewood with. So you can see that the big ones are compassion, resilience, communication, collaboration, innovation, and critical thinking. And all of these were things that they need to have as they move forward. As we started to really talk through this and pare it down a little bit more, we came up with some extra exemplars that fit in under each of these categories that we really wanted to ensure they had, so that we could see that they had that characteristic. So like for compassion as an example, if the student was empathetic, generous, equitable, and socially aware, then we knew that they would be compassionate as they went out. And we just really wanted to make sure that they were ready for whatever comes next, be that the job force or college or, kind of whatever they decided to do. That kind of all takes us to pillar 1, which started with the teachers. So in order to make that happen, to get what we wanted out of our graduates, we needed to look at how we were training teachers. We needed to look at what that can look like. Can it be micro-credentials? Can it be release time outside of school to get specific PD? And then moving into item 2, the professional learning communities, something that we had some success with in the past, but had fallen away from. And so we're looking to build those back up to really dive into student data and make sure that as a staff. And then you look at digital design and fabrication. So that's our maker spaces. That's our time for students to make and create and learn what they need to know to complete their projects. Video production is a really interesting one. This is one that the junior high principal just kind of dove into with both feet, and he is so excited to make their program more expansive and go a lot deeper for his students at the junior high. And that excitement kind of trickled down into the intermediate building and up into the high school as well. There was also the Ellettsville Chamber of Commerce has reached out to RBB wanting a community project done, and they're helping us create those connections to Smithville and their video production to make that happen. And we're still in the early stages, obviously, but that's what we're hoping to do. And finally, it comes to the collaborative learning environments. And those are the flexible seating, the getting kids together, the finding ways for them to collaborate and just talk with one another, which you can see ties back into our graduate profile. And then Megan is going to take on pillar 2.
So the second pillar is all related to career awareness and readiness, which really encapsulates a lot of what we're trying to do in terms of students really understanding what opportunities are available for them in their community. And like Jamie alluded to, really understanding the intricacies of what different fields can look like and the many different iterations of those. So the first component of this is about their student portfolios and assessments. And this is really just about students taking more ownership and understanding of their learning, really having a greater level of connection to their growth and their progression over time. We also really wanted to make sure that this was a PK through 12 career exploration. So not just with kids in high school exploring or middle school and high school, but really making sure even down to our PK students starting to get an understanding of how these things work in the actual world and having their tasks that are related to that and their curriculum really tied into those meaningful, relevant, and authentic work that they're doing in their classroom that's tied into the world beyond as well. Those career aligned pathways, these are related to what we have seen and heard from our industry partners in terms of the immediate needs in our community, and making sure that particularly our seniors have pathways that they can progress through to be able to have fields in healthcare and in digital fabrication, so that they have ways that they're progressing through a series of plans as they are working through their curriculum. And finally, this student-run enterprises is an opportunity for our students to be engaging in a business model where they are not only planning and designing and thinking about how a business should be run, but then actually running it themselves. So we have plans for a coffee shop at our high school, as well as then going on to digital design and fabrication as we get into our with our digital fabrication labs, where students will be actually doing business, creating materials, creating content for the community, and having a self-propelled business that they are in charge of. So letting them practice their skills and build their repertoire as they prepare for work in the real world as well. And I am going to hand it over now.
All right.
Next slide.
So there, Megan really covered the next slide, but it's worth pointing out that just this photo on this slide in particular it's worth noting that it's not staged. These were educators from Lagodi that came to learn from our teachers. So who better to learn from than our teachers, but our students. So these were elementary students that we pulled out of class for a few minutes to share their experience with STEAM, with some of their project-based learning projects, so that they could share what it was from their perspective that they were gaining more than just, you know, the academics. And so they were able to responsibly and respectfully field those questions and just really practice those soft skills in an authentic way. So any experience like that we can start to model and provide opportunities for in the youngest grades. Our kids are not just learning about work, but they're learning by working, they're learning through working, and then hopefully eventually they're working while still in school in those really authentic situations where they are, you know, even earning wages while in school. So where they can make a little bit of a wage and give back and just really learn the value of that work. And frankly, if nothing else, learn what fields they are or maybe are not interested in. I would have loved as a student the opportunity to learn what I was not interested in before I delved into a 4-year program and had to make a bit of a pivot or an adjustment. So for our kids to be able to make those decisions earlier on, we're just boosting, you know, that debt to income ratio for them, that they can hopefully start with a little bit better of a start when they leave us and decide what that plan looks like. So Mandy's going to share a little more of the community side and just what this is going to look like as far as the third pillar and some of our partnerships.
Thank you. The third pillar is family and community engagement. And just as much as we as teachers worked in the design process and industry partners worked in the design process, we also involved our families and really listened to what they needed from us as a school district. And so what we found was that district communication and infrastructure for family connectivity were needs of our families. And then the way that we're going to be doing that is we are rolling out a completely new brand for our district, and sharing that with our families, a new website and ways of communicating. We've all learned new communication skills in the last few weeks, and we'll be doing so for the rest of the year, and have found very creative ways to stay connected during this time. The Innovative Learning Center is new construction that we are starting, and it's going to be attached to our high school, and it's going to serve a lot of different purposes, from digital fabrication for our students, but it's also going to be a place where our community can come together and have some experiences and possibly workshops and meet some of the needs that they've expressed to us, and how we can do more than just the academic hours of the day for our students. And we are going to continue to grow our industry partnerships. We have a great start of the industry partners that have supported us through our design process, and we look forward over the next few years to just strengthen those and grow those.
That's a great.
There's a little mock-up or glimpse of that Innovative Learning Center and just what Mandy was speaking to as far as that floor plan. And this is something that I'm going to kind of just skip over, but you have this in the handout that we shared if you want to take a look at these outcomes. So some SMART goals, essentially, if you're familiar with that model, some measurable goals that we can speak to, that we intend to measure our effectiveness at through each phase of this process by these standards. So the number of teachers that we're training in certain things, the number of students that are engaged in particular programs like Project Lead the Way, the number of students that have certain types of work-based experiences, whether that's a one-off event like a career type event or fair, or sustainable internships. The number of career pathways that we offer students. These are just some examples of the measurable goals that we have set for this plan. So the budget, and again, you have the actual full page version of this, what we defined as kind of our Ready Schools budget for 3 years. So we thought 3 years was a reasonable time frame that we could create tangible plans for, with, again, a reasonable expectation of knowing what those 3 years are going to hold and what that looks like. Now, I will say, when we wrote this, we had no idea that a pandemic was upon us, quite literally, as we were trying to finish it. So the first year is really the heavy lift in this plan. And as we all know, a lot of those plans are just going to be a bit delayed. And there's really nothing in this plan that we don't intend to stay true to. The timing is what may just be stretched out a little bit further. So when you look at the one-page document of this, I'll first apologize for the small font. But the 3 phases there are true to each strategy and each program. And then after phase 1, 2, and 3, the next column there that you'll see all highlighted in yellow on your handout is a sample year of your support of this plan as the RDC. So an example of one of the strategies that we really are asking you to maintain your partnership and your collaboration with us in supporting is that teacher professional learning. That's just one example of not being able to pour into our students without first pouring into our teachers. We have to equip them with the understanding and the skills. The majority of our teachers, they knew they were going to be teachers from the time they were in school. They trained to be teachers. Some of them have been teachers for their entire duration of their career. And they genuinely don't know what the workforce looks like. They don't know the world that they're preparing their students for. So a lot of these programs and training require training of the teachers first before we can train the students. So that's just one example of the impact of the instructional coaches, is really that district-wide professional learning and the plan that we've established for that at every building level. Another example of one of the strategies that we're asking you all to continue supporting is those STEAM labs. We have beautiful state-of-the-art STEAM labs, thanks to partnerships like yours. And again, we feel that at this point, we're really just refining how we're using those and being more intentional about the workforce connections that we're making with those tools and with the programs that are taking place in those spaces like Project Lead the Way. We're not just engaging kids in hands-on learning because it's a best practice, which we know it is, but we're engaging them in experiences that are tied to jobs that are being performed right here in our community right now. We have videos that ROI has created interviewing members of the workforce that are serving in roles that are engaging and exciting for our kids. So these digital fabrication units are hands-on learning, but with that relevancy and that authenticity that, again, a few years ago, we had no idea what we didn't know. And this is just the next phase of this plan that we're so excited to share with you all. As far as the career exploration experiences that we've shared with you, again, everything from high school internships down to the career awareness and exposure happening in the primary classrooms, just being really intentional in how we're aligning those experiences so that kids are having this type of field trip for this purpose, not just because it's fun, but because it's informing their plans and their ideas of what they could do after school. So defining that progression and what it looks like so that there's vertical articulation from kindergarten all the way up through high school. And then the career pathways we mentioned, those big 3 sectors that are most represented in our workforce are the biomedical sciences, the losing my train of thought, defense and national security, and then advanced manufacturing. And those are the 3 sectors where the greatest number of jobs are going unfilled in some cases and are available to our students. So creating these experiences aligned to those pathways are just going to give them that purposeful opportunity to plan for themselves individually. So again, there's a little bit more information in your handouts about some of the feedback from our education and workforce advisory team. And again, I can't say enough about these individuals that have pledged time and effort and feedback to supporting this process and ensuring that we're able to prepare our students in the very best ways. But I also like to think that they were doing so and they continue to do so because they see the value in doing so as employers, that they understand that if they have a voice in how we're preparing our students, then they have a vested interest in their own future employees. So we really hope, we like to think that these partnerships that we're building are mutually beneficial to those employers as they get to have a say in how we prepare students to hopefully stay here and become gainfully employed in our region and be, a contributing member that can be retained for our workforce. So just a few anecdotes there that you can have a look at if you see fit after this. And this is kind of just my parting words that we really, like I said, we recognize that the traditional academic content isn't where it ends anymore. We can't just send our kids out into the world with knowledge. Frankly, they can Google anything that we can support them in memorizing. We have to equip them with skills and experiences. And that's what we've learned over the last 4 years. And that's what we've set a foundation for. And that we really are genuinely excited to create a path toward now so that our kids can persist in the plans that they define as they work their way through high school and think about what could be after graduation. They don't know what they can be if they haven't been exposed to it. So creating as many opportunities for them to be exposed to as many careers and pathways and employers in our community is really what we hope will be our next step with your support. So with that, I will let Dr. Sanders close and bid us all farewell.
Okay. Well, I hope you can see through your handouts and our presentation that how committed RBB is to this Ready Schools plan, as evidenced by the great initiatives that we want to implement through the building of the Innovative Learning Center. We are committed long-term to changing our culture, to changing and impacting our community in many positive ways. And our partnership with the RDC has made a huge difference in the lives of our students. And we hope that we've convinced you to continue this great partnership so that we can literally change the future of an entire community. I know we've taken a lot of your time tonight, a little more than we usually do. So we thank you for that, and we would be glad to take any of your awesome questions.
Thank you all so much for that wonderful presentation. It's just amazing to see the work both summarized and the plan for moving forward, building on the work that you've all done. And I think you said mutually beneficial, which is why we felt good supporting this in the prior years. I don't know, Jeff, what would you suggest as next steps? I mean, I think this probably needs digested by the commission members, and perhaps now would be a good time to ask my colleagues if there's any other information that you would want to know if, say, this was going to come back for a vote at another meeting. Is that, Jeff, a good way to approach it?
Yeah, I think, I mean, clearly the details wouldn't be available for a vote on any kind of additional support. I think, have some question and answer today, and then probably have it on the next month's agenda for additional questions and answers, so that when we move forward, we can move forward in a way that everybody understands what the expectations are and what the support is.
And can you remind me, when does the current grant run out? Did we make the last transfer on that, or is there?
We've got one more to go.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what we talked about at the last meeting. We have
Right.
one more for 2021.
Okay, thank you.
So we have some time to figure it out, but I'm sure they need planning lead time. So they need to, I would think we need to do it, fairly soon, but we don't have to do it, certainly not today or even next month, really.
Well, I think, if I may, I think this is very impressive, and I'm delighted to see it. I've been out to see what you were planning to do with the facility too. And at some point, we probably ought to connect with you again on that, because it's very fun to see what's going on. And teachers, thank you very much for what you're doing, because it's your job, but it's making things happen. That's important. I thank you. And Jeff, could you send me a copy of the report? I don't want it online, so.
We just got one via email. I know
I haven't seen it. Where is it?
We can get you a print copy.
yeah, Jeff just emailed it earlier today.
Oh, well, that's why I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
'Cause I've been trying to catch up. I've had some distractions, so I'm sorry about that. Sorry, Jared.
We have thrown a ton of information at you tonight, and
I
we
know.
honestly didn't expect a vote tonight. We just wanted to share this information. We would be glad to come back next month if needed, to maybe just for a question and answer session. We would be glad to do that.
Well, I'd like to have a hard copy so I can sit down and really digest it, because there's an awful lot of stuff in that. And this particular report is really a lot to comprehend, and it's so much fun to see what's going on. Thank you, Jerry.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to say I continue to be very impressed by what you all have done. I enjoyed the video you sent. I watched it earlier. I really like your graduation profile. I like to keep telling people that what used to be called the soft skills, and I guess there's probably a more sophisticated term nowadays, are one of the most important aspects of a successful career. And so you've definitely got some of them in there. Working together and collaborating is a big one. So I'm very pleased to, if we can figure out how to do it, and if it's all right, and if we've got the money, I'd be very pleased to keep supporting this. I do think that, and maybe Jeff will help us with this as we go forward, I don't think we can legally just keep funding things as an operational thing. We can help develop something like this that helps with economic development. At least that's my understanding. And I'd be pleased to do that as long as we got the money. I think you guys have really, come back with a big payment to the community for what we've invested, and into the possible workforce for the future for the TIP. So
That's right. I agree.
but we need to work with Jeff and figure out how to do this stuff. And I don't know what other people think. We'll need to see what they think.
Right, certainly the fiscal analysis of where we stand and what projects we are committed to is a part of this.
That's right.
And then should we somehow, if we do go forward, should Curry Profile somehow participate in this as well as the West Side TIF, if you will?
Probably.
Seems to me like they ought to. They're going to be needing a lot of people who are ready to be good employees.
Yeah, but the revenue stream there is considerably farther out than.
Well, that's true. That's a good point, Richard, that it is farther out.
Yep.
So there's a bunch of stuff like that we need to work on. I'm sorry, go ahead, Richard.
We have a potential shortfall already pointed out to us some months ago that we have to make sure we're cognizant of and understand how that's going to occur in a couple of years from now. The thing that I was I missed in all of this, you mentioned it, but I didn't get a good connection between the STEAM program that's in place now that you want to continue, as I understand it, and how that fits in with this Ready Schools initiative, how they integrate together. So I can see the thread that runs from the prior funding that we've given to create a capability in the school and how you're now leveraging that to move forward in this Ready Schools initiative. I didn't get a good connection there that I'd like to see. So that's a challenge for you going forward.
I'm happy to speak to that now if you'd like for us to, or we can wait and address that next month. It's up to you. I don't know what your time situation is.
I'd just as soon see it next month, actually.
Sure.
With some information, more than your verbal stuff, if you've got it available. Because I think it's really important for us to understand the impact we've had going forward.
And that's a great question, Richard. And I think we'll be able to easily provide you with something because it transformed very naturally from STEAM into where we go now. I think you'll be able to see that, I think we'd all be disappointed if STEAM just happened and that was it. It began and ended with STEAM. So I think I think you'll be able to see that it's gone way beyond that.
Yeah. Okay. Now, you've kind of alluded to a few things, but I'd like to see some more flesh on those bones.
For what it's worth, just food for thought, it really is a situation of refinement and taking best practices for everyone and just aligning those with what that looks like for our workforce here locally and regionally.
Okay, good.
So we can absolutely try to quantify that.
So I'm looking forward to that.
Since we're talking about information that we'd like to have for next month, could we have an updated schedule? You said that some of these things were behind a little bit because of COVID, which is completely understandable. But I love the Innovation Center idea. I would just like to know when these things might come online, given the delays. That would be great. Absolutely. And in the interest of full disclosure, I recently joined the staff of ROI, but I work on the other side of it. So I don't work on this side of it, but I love this. But I would like to see, when these things are going to come online.
Sure, Lisa.
Thank you.
Any other thoughts on things you'd like to see covered next time, or?
Well, yeah, I'd recommend you we've got the BEDC online here, Jen Pearl and Cart Griner. I'd be interested in you reaching out to them and see what their reactions are. How much is this kind of thing going to help them in recruiting a business and convincing a business that there is a workforce around here, because a workforce is a problem around here. It's one of our limiting factors, and it'd be, I think, interesting for us to see. I see Jen just showed her video, so so I don't know if they want to react now, but it would be good to have their input as we go forward.
Yeah, we can absolutely have some public comment on this one, even though it's an official item. Jen, hi.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you. And thank you for mentioning us as well. What I can say is that we do work with our local school districts, and Dr. Sanders is well connected with the BEDC to our board. When we get projects coming in the door, one of the first questions that is often asked is about our local workforce and about training and other opportunities. Clark Griner, who's our business development director, fields those and spearheads our responses on those. And then more broadly speaking, as we are trying to develop opportunities for the future and future employment, a lot of things that were mentioned here today, such as STEAM, are pretty key. We're currently working on a proposal for a trades district technology center. And that is intended to actually help develop technology employment and commercialization technology across the entire community and serve the region. And so I think there would be a number of areas of connection between what was presented here today and some of these other efforts. And then Clark, I don't know if you'd have anything to add just about the inquiries that we receive from growing companies and others that want to locate here.
Sure. Thank you, Jen. I'd be happy to comment on that. My name's Clark Greiner. I'm with the BEDC. To Jen's comment and some of the things I've been hearing here, all great news with regards to workforce development and stuff. We did a project here maybe a month and a half ago where all they asked about was workforce. And they wanted to know specifically about workforce, what programs we have out there, what kind of technical programs that we have available and stuff, right, and how scalable those programs are, and can we meet hiring needs and stuff. So it is a big deal. And people do look at this, and I think it is vitally important to workforce development and for attraction of what we really try to build. And in particular, if you look at some of the traded sectors that we are specifically going after, it is all in alignment with STEM. So, in the life sciences, the technology, the advanced manufacturing, the defense, all those are areas that we are looking for as a community to really go after from an attraction standpoint, as well as to help those that are currently in the community in those traded sectors to grow and expand. And as you can see right now, Catalan is on a really aggressive program to try to hire more people in. They're working closely with Hoosier Hills, Ivy Techs, and others to get students.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so there's a lot going on there. So I can't emphasize how important workforce development is. So thank you.
Well, and I would add that as somebody who in my previous life was trying to grow a business, to grow it, we needed to attract skilled people. And one of the things and so we would be typically trying to bring people back from the coast who had graduated from Purdue or Rose-Hulman and then gone off to the big city or whatever. And now they were starting to have kids and they couldn't afford housing on the coast. And so they were looking to come back, and they all wanted to know about schools. And I'm embarrassed to say, I would only tell them about MCCSC. And I think you guys have got a great story that employers and Crane would be a great example of people who, a place is trying to attract experienced people who got experience in radar, whatever, which you don't really get out here, but they need it. And this would be a good tool to help attract employees to come here.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Okay, well, we thank you all for being here this evening after, I'm sure, a long day.
Yeah, and a big delay. Sorry about that.
Oh, yeah, just thanking our RBB friends for being here this evening, and we can get in touch regarding scheduling the next step. And sounds like we had some direction in terms of additional materials, but overall that was a great presentation. So we'll look forward to that discussion.
Well, thank you. Appreciate all the time we took.
Mm-hmm.
Good stuff. Keep up the good work and good luck with the remainder of school in the weeks and months to come.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda, 2021 budgets.
And I think Lisa is the best one to walk you through this, and there she is.
Yeah. Hey, everyone.
Hi there.
So I guess I'll do the West Side TIF Fund first. Estimated revenue is 1.8 million in that for next year. We basically put it in the same line items as each year. Insurance, 3,000. The TIF annual review, we put in 9,000. Engineering construction is $825,015. for the STEM is 270,000, and then disbursement to the bank, what we're obligated to pay is the 692,985, which actually all comes out to 1.8 million.
Wow.
I might, could you frame this for us? Is this a step that has to happen before this goes to council?
Yeah, usually the budgets are approved by the RDC commission first, and then our budget hearings are the Thursday. It would be 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, I believe is September 9th is that date. 10th, September 10th is our budgets.
And each TIF has a separate budget.
Each TIF has their own budget.
Does it have to go to the commissioners before going to the council?
I don't believe so, Jeff. I think it just goes to the RDC and then the council. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
I do think the commissioners review it when they review the highway department's budget internally.
Okay, good. I wouldn't want to have them left out, then to get them complain.
So do you want to have any comments on the West Side TIF budget? Or you want me to read the next one?
I tried to go through that, but I got messed. There's too many numbers.
Well, you ought to see our other budgets.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so the Corridor 46 TIF, there's just basically the annual review amount that we pay, and then the disbursement to the bank, which equals $324,377, which is what that TIF is estimated to bring in. And then the Fullerton Pike TIF, we just have the TIF annual review, which is $2,500 is what we're budgeting. And then the engineering and construction, we put in the remainder of the estimated revenue of $180,933, with the total budget being $183,433.
Lisa, is on the 46 quarter TIF, is that our last payment?
Jeff, you would have to answer that. I believe it is because we've been in the discussion.
The January one will be the last payment, yes.
So that is the 2020.
Okay. And why is there no profile TIF, current profile TIF? Just because we have no money
Are you
yet?
talking about the cook?
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't have that. I don't have that budget. Nobody's given me a budget for that TIF district.
Who's got a dog whining? You?
That's me. I apologize. Hang on.
It's not me.
I was just going to ask people to mute, but
I'm so sorry. He does it every time.
But I think to answer Jim's question, I think it's exactly right. We don't have a bond payment that comes forward for a few years. We have obligations in our bond not to make payments outside of it, essentially, until we have enough revenue to cover the bond payment.
Is there any revenue coming in yet?
I would think is this the first full year, second full year? I'm not aware of any revenue.
Okay.
2019 would have been the first full year, I believe, for that TIF district.
Certainly.
And I'm guessing if there was revenue coming into that TIF district, that the auditor's office would have reached out to Jeff or myself on.
Okay.
I guess there shouldn't be because of when it was created, and then there was the tax abatement given. Pretty healthy one so even if there was an increase in assessed value because of an improvement at this point, it would have been abated.
Yeah.
Would there be a small expense for an annual report on that one?
That's a good question. And if there is, how do we pay it?
You don't have to answer that now, but maybe just something to research.
Absolutely.
Well, there will be a small expense for that. Lisa and I will check the revenue coming in, and we could do a appropriation. Either we could amend it for the council, or we could do an appropriation at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, we can go in for an
Probably the beginning of the year, because I think right now any number we would have would be fairly suspect.
Yeah, well, they would have an abatement on the improvements, but not on the physical property that was there before. We
Right.
should get some revenue from that.
Well, but it's an increment. So the base value would generally takes care of the physical value of what's currently on site when the TIF is created.
So they didn't, it depends on whether or not it's had a reassessment since any of the work that they've done. Like they had the sidewalks in and all that stuff and the parking lot. Has that been didn't that get reassessed last year or earlier this year?
I'll check with the assessor's office.
I
Okay.
think it's in the process, probably.
Yeah, and I'm not sure that whether the abatement applies to that stuff or not.
I don't remember.
We'll check with the assessor and get that information to you.
And there's also, we should have something on the 2020 bonds too by now, right? Because 2021, we start making payments. So there should be a budget for that. I don't think there's any revenue, but there's payments due.
For which bond?
2020s.
So he's talking about, I believe it'd be for the Profile Parkway extension bond.
Right. Our first payment was due July 15th. And I assume it got paid.
I'm assuming it did too. Look into that also, because I was trying to think these bonds are getting paid differently, and
Yeah, they're confusing.
they're very confusing. But I'm thinking that this Profile Parkway bond is getting paid differently than our 2015 bond for the Hart Street project. And I want to, yeah, I don't want to speak.
I'm pulling up the annual report.
Okay.
And all that should be in the annual report. Let's see. I know it's in one of these exhibits. I just got to find the right one.
You want us to come back to this item while you do a little looking?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay.
So, I mean, if you had any questions on these or the projects in these, I'd be happy to answer those.
Let me.
Any questions?
692.
Lisa, I don't want to take up everybody's time, but since I'm new, could you just tell me, could you send me an email later with what projects are going to come out of these TIFs? Because I'm sure other people probably know, but I don't know.
It would be a good reminder.
Sure. To be honest, the Fullerton Pike is one project.
Yeah.
You got that one.
I got that one.
And I can send you, but there's only basically 3 projects in the West Side TIF that are priority right now. Everything else has kind of been put on the back burner.
Okay, can you remind me what they are?
Profile Parkway extension.
Okay.
And then we have the Vernal Pike connector.
Okay.
And then we have that Vernal Pike, the multi-line use trail. There's a piece of Vernal Pike that's going to get completed. That's the 3 projects that are priority right now.
Okay.
Hey, remind me, Lisa, does that Profile Parkway include the drop down to Jonathan or not?
It does not.
Okay.
That was put on hold when we
That's right. That's right.
accepted the project. So that south piece would be a future piece.
Okay.
I can give you a little bit of an update, which I do have a question for the board, and I apologize. I have another appointment at 6 or so. The Daniels Hartway project, we just did our punch list walkthrough last week. That is scheduled that it could possibly be open in about a week.
Really?
if all the punch list items are completed. Is the board interested in just opening those roads, or are you interested in any type of ribbon cutting? I know with the COVID and everything, a lot of people are not getting together, but I did not want to open up one of your new roads that you paid for and not give you the opportunity to cut a ribbon to it.
Yeah, what does everyone think? I mean,
I'm okay with opening it.
Yes.
I'm okay with opening it. I don't see.
Okay, that's perfect.
I mean, of course, we would defer to the elected officials as well.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, get Ernest or Dave Askins to do articles about it. I don't know if you do that.
That would
Okay.
be good.
I could reach out to Ernest and let him know when we're opening it. I talked to him today, so I'll reach out to him and see if he would like to do like an article, maybe some pictures for it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty confident the commissioners would not want to do a ribbon cutting because they're very cautious with the COVID and everything. So I wouldn't expect them to want to be in a group together. So I don't want to speak on behalf of them, but again, they're being very cautious for the county. So
good.
I'm happy to defer to them.
Mm-hmm. So the only other update I would have would be the Profile Parkway extension. We have a bi-weekly meeting every 2 weeks. That is still on target to be completed in the fall. I believe Gates Drive is going to be closed over the next couple of weeks to tie in that connection for some storm sewer and things. But it's still on target. So that's pretty much my updates for the project. So
super.
Thank
And
you.
maybe to answer the question, since you bought me some time, the annual report has the 2021 combined debt service is $692,985, which is what's in the budget. And our trustee auditor's office emailed me the claims that shows that debt service for the 2020 bond was paid prior to July 1.
Good.
And then you'll look into whether the Curry profile TIF needs a budget.
Yeah, we'll check. We'll look at it and check out the revenue and get that information out.
Okay, so on this item, is this something we vote on or just?
I think you guys should move to approve this going to the county council for their budget sessions.
I so move that we approve this and send it to the county council for their budget sessions.
Motion.
Second.
Is there any other discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
I want to make sure that we deal with the Profile Parkway.
Mm-hmm.
I want the motion should include that we add the Profile Parkway if it's appropriate.
Okay, so do we want to, you want to offer an amendment to the motion?
Well, I want to, yes, I want to amend the motion so that we adopt this budget, or we recommend this budget or adopt this budget with the provision of adding to it the
Curry profile
budget.
Okay.
Budgeted amount for 2021. And its TIF annual review.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend the motion. Not sure if I'm doing this right, but
It's a little odd because we're not spending the money. The money's already been spent, but it's an obligation we have to pay. So there's got to be some kind of
Something in there. Yeah.
Reimbursement to bank or something like that.
Well, and I would just point out, I think it's wise move to go ahead and approve it for adding the potential review costs. When we set up the bond, we weren't making a payment for the first 5 years. So there would not be a disbursement to bank or anything like that yet. So I just kind of want to make that clear.
Right, but there's some expense there that we should put in this.
For a review, right?
Yeah.
Well, I will accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, I second.
so we have an amended motion, and I hopefully can take a look. All those in favor say aye.
We have to do a roll call vote.
Have to do a roll.
So if you guys are ready to vote, or do you want to get public comment in case there's any public commenters? That's appropriate as well.
Okay, thank you. We'll take public comment then if there is any. Okay, seeing none, call for a roll call.
Okay, Commissioner Pfefferman,
Aye.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Shelton,
Yes.
Commissioner Abbott,
Yes.
Commissioner Kiesling.
Yes.
Motion is approved 5-0.
Next on our agenda is State Road 46 TIF discussion, and we have some of the planning department staff here with us for this. So I'll turn it over to the county team.
And I'll give a kind of reminder. At the last meeting, there was a lot of discussion about basically the North Park, the State Road 46 corridor, and prioritizing projects with because our partner in that TIF, that bond runs out, and they want to do additional projects, and they want to capture additional revenue. We had a long conversation about what the future should look like for that, and so that's kind of, so I contacted Jackie and asked her to put together something so that we can kind of look at, kind of what the studies have been done and what they look like, and from a planning perspective, how do they see it kind of unfolding over there.
Thanks, Jeff. Yeah, so my name is Jackie Nestor-Jellin. I'm with the planning department. So I just wanted to give a brief update on North Park, as well as just kind of host some conversations around the area, because right now we're undergoing our county development ordinance. And so we're going to be looking to rezone the entire county jurisdiction and look over our zoning and subdivision control ordinances. So it's very timely to be thinking about what to do with our 101 PUDs in the county, and this being the largest. So just quickly, our agenda for tonight that I want to go over is just an overview of North Park, some of the thoroughfare planning conversations we've had with the highway department, some comprehensive plan questions, and then also just any Q&A throughout, pretty informal. Just stop me if you have any comments. So just quickly, North Park area is between the city of Bloomington, town of Ellettsville. It's over 562 acres. It was created in 2004, and it's a mix of a lot of different uses: commercial, industrial, residential, and that's namely why it's a PUD. So on the screen here, I did a quick update of the area in the North Park subdivision, or PUD rather. And the areas highlighted in blue are of note because they're still owned by Mr. Kreider. So it's a significant portion of the properties that are still owned by Mr. Kreider. And the stars represent the recent development interest and projects that we've had, most recently Ernest Health on the northwest side of 46 and Curry. And that's going to be an acute care facility. So as part of the North Park PUD, they have different thoroughfare plans for this region. I overlaid that onto the GIS, so it's a little more helpful. And the discussion that we had with the highway department and Jeff and a few from redevelopment were, okay, so these are the overall transportation plans for this area as part of North Park. Which ones should we actually prioritize? So we talked about prioritizing first and foremost the Curry Pike to Hunter Valley connection. Then we also talked about the Bluebell Court, which is off of Stouts Creek over there. And then also we talked about kind of on the northeast side is off of 46. There's an area kind of zoned for residential, and that's kind of the conversation I'll come back to about the residential TIF. And then also on the southwest side, we talked about extending Stone Carver, which is off of Lintel, in hopes that eventually with the Sunrise Greetings development, that kind of would tie in later with that. But a lot of these other road developments maybe are on as prioritized. So the discussion about bonding and what should be included, these were our recommendations. So quickly, that area in the yellow circle was one of the roads we talked about, and possibly a location for a new residential TIF if the numbers end up working out well. So in order to talk about North Park, I'm just going to quickly go through some of the current permitted uses in the area. And the way that North Park is set up, it's a pretty long document for one of the PUDs in the county, and it's broken up into districts. So you have A, B, C, and D. And then you also have within those districts kind of permitted use areas. So worth noting, the areas that I highlighted for a potential residential TIF district came about because that area is for single family, max amount 165 units. It's also some low density single family, so larger lots, about 30 units. And then also kind of surrounding that area is multifamily, max 270 units. So it's kind of a residential corridor area of the North Park PUD already zoned for that. And then surrounding that area to the south, you have some more town centers. So that would be like kind of your downtown area, your neighborhood retail, and then your office retail. So you have some services that would serve that residential area to the north, and all of the green area surrounding is really nice landscape, greenscape plan that they have incorporated in this PUD. So Jeff wanted me to talk a little bit about what's in North Park currently, and then what could be part of North Park if they were to consider maybe rezoning the property or doing something different moving forward. So luckily for us, we had two comprehensive plans preceding this in 2015 and 2017, and they pointed out North Park as an opportunity area. And they pointed out that it would be a mix of employment kind of on the southwest side of 46 and Curry, and then more residential on the northeast side, because that's currently what's being accommodated. And they talked about encouraging that town center feel, which would be that downtown, and then also a mixture of different employment types, and considering this to be like a node area because of its location between Ellettsville and Bloomington. And they have some nice schematics of the areas that they're thinking this might look like, kind of wider pedestrian ways, front forward facing buildings. And North Park is one of the few areas in the county where we have pretty strong architectural standards. So you're able to achieve quite a bit on a pedestrian scale with a lot of land to work with. Also, in looking back at the plans, they did do a market analysis of the area, and they found there were a couple opportunities for different types of retail in the North Park area that could be accommodated under the current ordinance. So I thought that was interesting to point out. They did a schematic of maybe what that area could look like, overlaying the aerial here. So kind of an office right off of that Curry, Pike, Hunter Valley connection and 46. And then you have kind of the mixed use, mixed residential use surrounding it. And here's just kind of a more built out version of that. Surrounded by greenscape on all sides. So you do have some floodplain constraints, and there's the quarry property kind of southeast of here. Right. So this is the schematic that they came up with, mixed residential and commercial for this area. So I want to point out, this is my last slide, just some quick recommendations that the plan had, which was we should create a detailed study of the market and the site plan that could accommodate this area. We should update the North Park ordinance that was in the comprehensive plans. That right now the PUD ordinance is 16 years old, and you know, it's not working all that well. And so there needs to be a plan for splitting up those large development tracts. Right now, if they split up the large development tracts, it's kind of a % build out, and then they're triggered to build large infrastructure such as roadway connectivity. And so to some extent, they've kind of built up to those thresholds and then moved on to another property so that they don't, you know, maybe there's an avoidance of having to incur the cost of building out that infrastructure. So how do we revise that plan so that maybe that's not a discouraging thing? And then also enhancing the Central Boulevard, the town square, creating that like little downtown node area was the last recommendation. So I have plenty of other information, but I wanted to just open it up for questions. If there are specific areas people wanted to look at or questions that you wanted to go over.
Thanks, Jackie. Any questions or thoughts?
So many possibilities.
Yeah, I know it's kind of a lot to absorb right now.
Right. Do we need to do something at this point, or are this just for information for now, Jackie?
I think Jeff had asked, so Mr. Kreider, I think, is going to be doing a new bond. So I wanted to update people on those 4 priority roadways as a main focus, but then also the residential TIF, I know has been a big discussion, and we're going to have some SPFLs this semester to maybe look at if that's a real possibility or interest by the redevelopment commission, then that's something that we could look into for that, maybe that area in particular.
Right.
So.
How are other commissions, like I'm thinking of the county's housing commission and then of course the plan commission, involved right now with any of this, if at all? Just trying to kind of figure out the sections.
You mean as it relates to North Park in particular, or residential TIF?
Well, both, I guess. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, North Park has kind of, there hasn't been any movement by Mr. Kreider to change the North Park ordinance. There was the Ernest Health development, and so that went through several updates of the code to get that accommodated there. But as far as I think the conversation has been when we have a new ordinance, maybe approaching Mr. Kreider at a point and saying, hey, do you want to roll into these county zones as opposed to the PUD? He's always kind of seemed open to that, but he wants to be presented with a plan. And unfortunately, maybe the level of detail of a plan that he's looking for may involve a market study or other kind of more expensive inputs that, he would have to put that in.
Led by the plan commission or us?
That's a good question. I think, if it was something that the redevelopment commission was interested in doing a market study for this area, it was a recommendation in the comprehensive plan and it seems to be needed, but I would open that up for discussion. Jeff, I don't know if you want to weigh in there as well.
I think, yeah, I'm just trying to clarify our role in any of these discussions as they cross, into planning jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Well, I think planning should help inform your decisions. I don't think that necessarily planning is something that you guys get involved in, but certainly how we foresee the future of that area is something that you guys have to be aware of in order to make intelligent decisions.
Yeah, certainly we could get involved in a market study.
Right.
Yes.
I should think that behooves us to do it because it's a lot of territory we're talking about, a lot of potential for different designs or whatever you want to call them. But I don't know, I don't know how much it costs us to do that, if we should do it or that should be another entity that should be do that. I think since we're interested in the TIF and the property, might be worth our while to look and see how much that would cost.
Okay, but that's not showing up in the 2021 budget.
That's right.
So, right. So we would have to deal with that. I am interested, Jackie, in getting information from your students about the residential TIF. I do sit on the Affordable Housing Commission as well. And, they're very interested in trying to increase the housing inventory in the area. So I'll look forward to seeing that information, maybe at both commissions.
Yeah, I think the first step is to determine whether this area qualifies for residential TIF. I know, Jeff, you wanted some data on housing and building numbers, which we can get out. But I think actually creating a residential TIF, that's an action by the county commissioners. Is that right?
Well, I think that with any TIF, the process would involve it starting at the Redevelopment Commission. It goes to the commissioners, it goes to the Plan Commission, and then it comes back to the Redevelopment Commission for a final approval. If there's any kind of debt or financing involved in it, which there traditionally has been, then it also involves the county council. So it kind of involves everybody.
Right, right. Well, I think maybe, Jeff, you ought to check in with the commissioners and see whether they would want us to do anything like that, because we're still responsible to some extent to the commissioners as well as the council.
Mm-hmm.
And usually we get some direction from the commissioners.
Well,
So.
and the commissioners have talked about it, and I don't really want to speak for them, but I think they are interested. I think they are interested in, particularly in a area that's currently TIF's getting involved, so they're not creating new land area for this.
Right.
I think that's kind of the feel I get from them, but you know, I'm not speaking for them, but that's just kind of my impression of where they're at.
So we make our last payment next January, is that right?
This January, or the upcoming January.
Coming January. So at mid-year next year, we should have funds available to invest in some kind of effort.
I thought this budget was for the whole year of 2021, and the total income for 2021 was 324, 377, and with with the exception of the TIF review, the rest of it went to the payment of the bank. Is that not accurate?
I don't believe that's accurate. No, I think you've got a July settlement that is not currently designated toward any debt.
Right.
Because we just approved this budget with those numbers.
Yeah, all we did was approve that it goes to the bank.
Oh, I see.
Right, but what I'm saying is that if it, okay, so it goes, the disbursement goes to the bank, but that's not the bond payment? I don't know if I thought it was.
The bond payment would be included in that.
Do we know how much the bond payment is and how much of the disbursement to the bank would be left?
Give me a second. And it's actually due February 1st, and that payment is for $481,750.
All right, and what's our disbursement next year? What's our anticipated revenue for the year, for the same year?
Anticipated revenue is $324,377. I would say, and I just remind you that half of that, or that will be received in July. The first part of that will be received in July. So essentially, the payment we make in February will be based upon revenues we've received this year.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So there's an anticipation that we're going to end up with about $300,000 to work with going forward late next year.
Yes.
Okay. So part of that could be, we could think of as available for some kind of market analysis or market study to give us a better handle on what's going on. Part of it could be put into a high priority roadway project if necessary, which would be more than that amount of money, but we could be having money for several years going into paying for that. Because even if you decide to do the project, you can't get it done in the same year. So there is a possible, I mean, I think we have uses for the funds. We just need to figure out what's going on with the timing on them.
Well, I think we also need to figure out how much of this, I mean, so, okay, you said the payment was a little over $400,000, right? So is it split half and half? So it's like $200,000 is coming out this year and $200,000 is coming out next year?
That $400,000 is in the bank already.
That 400, well, it's after the
after the
next settlement.
Right.
But that would be for monies that are collected in 2020.
Right.
But our payment is not due till February, so we need to have it in the budget.
Right.
Okay.
But that's funds we've already got accounted for.
Correct.
So I guess it would be good to know what is the amount that we have available for projects and studies.
I think you'll have approximately 320,000.
Okay. I guess that was my question.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
all of the payment that's coming out in February is coming from money from 2020.
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
Right, it has to be in the bank.
And that's the last payment.
Yes.
And we have no projects allocated to this TIF like we do with the West Side TIF.
None.
No.
Okay.
No, because we wouldn't make the payments.
Couldn't make the payments.
Right, we could make the payments on the last project.
Okay.
And I guess
Well, you know, I mean, I'm kind of new, and
No, I know.
we get this. I got this information a little bit piecemealed, so I'm trying to like put all the puzzle pieces together to figure it out.
That's
Well, I
okay.
think you're right.
That's
though.
great. You're asking great questions.
Yes, you are. We need those questions.
And the TIF does, I mean, it would sunset at a certain date soon if no further action was taken. What's that date?
Well, with the founding document, it was founded in I want to say 2002, and it says in the founding document that it is a 30-year TIF.
I thought you said it was 2004.
Oh, it might have been 2004. I'm going off the top of my head. It's one of those two dates. So it's got a little over 10 years left after that final payment.
Right, right.
I think that the foundation date for the TIF and the bond are different by a year.
Okay. Well, let's say it's 2002 and 30, that would be 30 years would be 32. We know they have another 12 years to go. So, or whatever. I'm not counting right, but so.
Yeah, maybe a planning session on that.
I think something needs to be done there, worked out.
Yeah.
Right. If we don't use that money, we're obligated to give it back to the county.
There we go.
We've
County might
already
need
told
it,
them-
right?
We've already told them this year we have use for the money.
Right.
That's right.
Well, I think because this is such a crucial area, we need to really think about helping plan something for the area that we could eventually have some investment in.
Right.
Well, and that includes housing, since
Yeah,
that's such
absolutely.
a big problem.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it's, as Jen Pearl points out frequently, and as do I, really, it helps link us with Ellisville, which is one of these days going to just kind of link up.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, so would we want to maybe spend more time on thinking through this topic at another meeting, devote some time to it?
Yeah, because I'm gonna have to go in a little while because I got something else coming up and you all probably do too, but we still have to approve some claims too.
Although,
Well, I got one question. Jackie, is there anything we need to do vis-a-vis the CDO to make sure we have all our options left, or is the fact that it's a PUD means it's going to be the same when the CDO is finished?
A good question, Jim. So if we don't have an alternative plan that Mr. Kreider finds suitable, he won't expire his PUD and it'll roll over. And so it would just be an additional process for this whole area to go through a rezone. So.
But we want to make sure that the zones we have available are zones that would be suitable for the area.
Yes.
Anyone from the public wishing to comment? Jen, please.
Thank you so much. One of the comments that I wanted to make was the BEDC might be able to help support the RDC in this process. I mentioned earlier that we're working on the development of a proposal for U.S. Economic Development Administration funding for a Trades District Technology Center. a part of that requires us to, it's a very, very comprehensive application. And we're required to do something called a SEDS equivalent, which is a comprehensive economic development strategy, which is something we were planning on anyway this year, but before a pandemic hit. And so that's on the docket for us for this fall. And essentially what that does is kind of outlines all of the economic development priorities across the whole community. And we know what many of those are already because we have lots of existing studies and plans, et cetera. So it would be extracting what's already been done, building on all of the studies that have been done and saying, here's how we can focus on these together as a community across sectors. And then here's how we can apply them to all the different projects around the community. So there's the TIF districts to which they could apply. There's the CDO process, there's, the hospital moving, et cetera. And, examples of what some of those priorities would be are employment growth and specifically in what areas, housing growth and specifically what is needed there. And there's already been a number of studies completed that we could simply pull data from. We also have to put together a feasibility study for this application I mentioned.
Oh my gosh.
And so we can leverage that here because that's going to be looking at market demand for technology employment growth. So rather than reinventing the wheel, I think what we could do is bring some of these elements to the table to help support the RDC in that process, and then kind of try to coordinate across all of these different economic development initiatives in the community to make sure that we're kind of rowing in the same direction.
Great.
Would appreciate that. And maybe that looks like a presentation at an upcoming meeting or along the way, but would love to coordinate that with you. Thank you.
Be happy to help. And Clark also might have some notes as well. I noticed that his video popped up too.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, well, thank you. My name's Clark Greiner. I'm with the BEDC. Just to add a little bit of, I guess, narrative on this. One of the things, we had some recent development in there that's ongoing right now, as Jackie pointed out. The one thing I would just want everyone to kind of think about as we reflect on this and the CDO that's upcoming and trying to do this, the PUD and the different layers of that add complexity to development projects. And I would just, as we're kind of formulating all this, putting that together, I'd really encourage us to think through that. I know that Ernest Health, when their project gets a little closer to finish, they'd be very willing to sit down and talk about some of the things they went through and maybe ways that we can actually improve how we do things and development of things. But just want to kind of bring that up. That's a primary, I think, and something that we get a fair number of inquiries about that area. And so I just want to be sensitive to that as part of the business development efforts that I put forth. So just sharing that is just some thinking and some thoughts.
Excellent, so. Thank you. Any other public comment on this item? Any other discussion? Okay.
So what are our actions we're going to take here?
I mean, it sounds like there is a ways to go in terms of the exploration that the planning department, maybe with the help of interns, will be completing, and then the BDC. It sounds to me like we don't have a next step until kind of hearing some, reports from those couple of angles. Is that fair?
Yeah, we can certainly report back this next couple of weeks about maybe getting into the residential TIF and seeing if that's a possibility specifically to these two townships. So that's something we can report back just by email. And then I'll work with Jen about the market study, because that would be great if we had that as an option. So.
Okay. All right.
Are there other steps the commission would like to see happen between now and then? Or Jeff, any other thoughts from your end? Or
no, I think what we've talked about is exactly what I was hoping to get discussed. Is what do we see moving forward? What's the future? What do we want to do? that kind of drives the whole conversation. So I think that's seems pretty reasonable to me.
Yep. I think the only other thing was very ballparkish estimates on the cost of those roadway priority projects.
Yeah, right.
But very, nothing too detailed, just ballparkish to give us some kind of idea about ordering in which we might think about doing them if that's the way we want to go.
I know Lisa has some numbers on the Curry Pike Hunter Valley, but Jeff, I don't know if you want to coordinate with Lisa on those, or
I think she's probably gone.
Well, she's the cell phone number up there. So I don't know if TSD can unmute her or she wants to unmute herself or how that works calling in. I've never called in.
I
only Lisa too.
We can come back to this as I'm sure.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we can get. I think that the ballpark estimate for I think the Hunter Valley, my memory was a little over $2 million.
Yeah.
Okay.
The rest of the roads, I wouldn't even want to speculate, but that's the number that's always been thrown about for that project.
Yeah, because there's a bridge in there that's got to be dealt with.
Yes.
May I also ask a question related to next steps? What are some of the timelines that you're looking at, both for the PUD, and how does that timeline compare maybe to the CDO, if they interact in any way?
So the PUD never expires, essentially. At this point, they've started with the development plans and they're considered what we call vested. But as far as the CDO, I would be thinking by, mid-spring, summer next year that we would want to have a really well thought out zoning plan for this area so that we could go through the process of actually expiring the PUD at the hearing level. And then if it expired for a time, there would basically be no zoning and then it would be rezoned. So it had to be really timely when we did it, but we could do it at the same meeting that it was expired, that it would be rezoned. So.
And that actually dovetails. So we have to have our application that we're working on. We're trying to get that in by September 30th. So we'll have a start on a SEDS equivalent, and then we'll probably expand on that in the fall and finish it up by, we're hoping, Q1 of 2021. So some of that may align as well.
Cool. Sounds good, Jen. We'll coordinate.
Okay, thank you. If no other discussion on that, we'll move ahead to the claims.
Yes, we have several claims tonight. The bulk in number are for right-of-way acquisitions.
Right.
The total of all the claims is $195,017.36. They are broken down as follows: Smith Rehab, $1,232. WSP USA, $73,271.71. DLZ, $36,679.15. Duke Energy, $39,222.82. Herald Times, $1,046.68. Mr. Davis, $3,117.50. Ms. Fuller, $1,558.75. Mr. Paul Davis, $8,680. Mr. and Mrs. Livingston, $11,500. Mr. Baxter, $1,558.75. Ms. Spikert, $7,250, and Miss Meadows, $9,900. And again, that totals $195,017.36.
So we spent about 35,000 on just right-of-way acquisition plus the assessment for reviewing them or appraising them.
88,000 or
I did
85.
88. I did it by my head earlier, so I don't have.
$85,000.
Okay.
I had a question about that. How do we control appraisal costs? One of these appraisers charged us twice what the other one did. And the cost of these appraisals is almost identical with our cost of purchasing the property. This is a little bit skewed to me. How do we control or deal with this? I mean, I can't imagine that it's the intent of the state and the federal government to have us spend as much to appraise property as it costs to buy it. Just seems weird to me.
Do we get quotes on that every time, or is it like a annual process to select?
I think the appraisals were in the contract for WSP.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So how do we control what WSP does in terms of doing those appraisals? Or how do we do it in projects going forward so that we don't end up with this kind of very funny situation?
And I hear your question, and I wish that Lisa wasn't muted so she could help fill in some of the details with how her offices interacts with that group. Michelle, could you try to have her do the unmute again? Oh, there she is. Can you hear me, Lisa? I hear you. So you're in good shape.
Hello?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. So a lot of times, if it's a federal, a lot of times consultants have their own subcontractors for those purposes, for the appraisals and the buyers, and they usually have a working relationship with those buyers. We usually don't get involved in dictating of who they choose. Moving forward, if that's something I can look into, I don't have a problem. It's just I've learned on most of these projects,
Didn't hear you.
Okay. Traveling and she's out of range.
Yeah. Right.
Well, it's just something I want us to pay attention to going forward, particularly when we buy all these little pieces of property where the cost of the appraisal is essentially the cost of the property.
More than what
Yeah, we need to think about how we do that going forward so that we've got a little more control over it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Lisa.
I don't know if they have to bid on it or not, or what, or whether we have a standing contract with the county or anything. Jeff, you probably need to check that out.
there's no bid.
Okay.
It's not a bid item.
That's what I thought.
It's not a bid item.
That's what I thought.
It's basically, like I said, it's usually the consultant having a relationship with the buyer and appraiser.
Okay.
And that's who they put into as a subcontractor for them.
Yeah.
Okay.
But this may be something we would want to contract directly.
Directly by ourselves.
Yeah, so
we did that, I believe, on one project in the past, and then we took over trying to do the own recording of the deeds and everything in our department. It was overwhelming.
Did anyone else get that?
Yep.
Yep, we've been Zoomed.
All right, let's.
You're not kidding.
Turn this meeting adjourned.
All right, go back.
Wait, don't we need to approve the claims before we adjourn?
Yeah, let's go ahead and approve the claims.
I'm sorry. I thought it wasn't going to go away.
Yeah, okay.
We'll survive.
Did TSD fix it, or? I got a question.
Yes, the person has been removed and sharing is no longer available.
All right, good, thank you.
Sure.
Because I got a question. Lisa, what did Duke Energy do for $39,000? It says they were going to provide support in accordance with Exhibit A, and there is no Exhibit A or Attachment A.
That's for relocation.
Yeah,
Oh,
they
really?
had to pay them for relocation. She mentioned that last time.
Okay. I didn't think there were any utilities out there. But
No,
okay.
usually we always have utilities.
Oh, there she goes.
Okay.
Oh, that's fine.
All right, everyone.
Okay, then we get a motion for the claims.
Right, I'm gonna move approval of the claims for the amount of $195,017.36.
I second that.
Pick one.
Says the second. If no further discussion, all those in
Call
favor,
the, call the wall.
all those in favor say aye.
We got
Let me call the roll.
Roll
Jeff.
call. I'm sorry. Is that with every item on a virtual
Yep.
meeting?
Yes,
Got it.
every vote. Commissioner Pfefferman,
Yes.
Commissioner Martin,
Yes.
Commissioner Shelton,
Yes.
Commissioner Kiesling,
Yes.
Commissioner Abbott.
Yes.
Motion is approved, 5-0.
Okay. What else do we have? I forgot my agenda here.
We have staff comment next, if there's anything else from county staff.
I think that we've got a good moving forward. I think the big project for me the rest of the year is trying to figure out what we're going to do with North Park. So it sounds like that you guys got a pretty good handle on what we need to do next. So I think that's kind of my comment.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think.
And before I ask for commissioners' comments, was there anyone from the public who'd like to address the commission? Anything not on our agenda this evening? Okay, commissioners' comments?
Well, I just want to say thank you for listening to the presentation from RBB earlier. It's exciting what they're doing, and we appreciate the support that we've had through the years from the RDC. There was a question about the facility projects. So just real quickly, the connector between the EIS and EPS, the two elementary buildings, contains a couple STEAM labs in it. John Kerr was actually broadcasting from one of those in the meeting earlier. We are opening a STEAM lab, two STEAM labs at the junior high. They should be completed by the end of this calendar year. So hopefully by late December, so we can use it the 1st of January, those will be open. The Innovative Learning Center is on an approved project list, and I believe it will be going out to bid soon. So as far as the coronavirus, the pandemic pushing things back, that's not pushing anything back when it's related to the facilities. At RBB, we felt it was important to keep our projects moving, keep people employed, keep people working in the area. So we kept those going. So I just wanted to give a quick update on that. But again, thank you so much for the support.
But you're doing out there, it's amazing work. So please extend that to your colleagues on the school board.
It's exciting.
Yes, it is.
Any other comments from commissioners? Okay, no other comments. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All right, we're adjourned. Thank you.